It is time for a best of 3 series of top level StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a Zerg versus Terran, where in the top right hand corner, playing with the red Zerg drones, we have none other than Reynor and his opponent. Down in the bottom left, playing with the blue SCVs, we're looking at none other than Ryung's main command center. And truth be told, okay, I haven't really seen Ryung play much yet on the new multiplayer balance patch. It's been around for maybe a month and a half or so at this point in time. And I figured this would be a nice update as to where Ryung is currently at. Well, apparently we're starting off the series with a good old Proxy Rex. Normally Ryung is a very macro-focused player, at least the last few times that I have seen him play. He loves playing the long, drawn-out macro games, but I mean, when you're going up against one of the world's very best Zerg players, maybe you do have to mix it up just a little bit. Now, this particular series is from Wardy's Korean Royale tournament. I was wondering for just a moment if it is indeed the Korean Royale, why Reynor is playing, but Reynor currently living over in Korea, and I guess that gave him a pass to go ahead and compete in this particular tournament as well. Now, I do know that Reynor has actually been playing a lot of League of Legends again as of late. He's been playing a bunch of StarCraft, but then also a bunch of League. And from what I understand, his League of Legends skills are actually, well, rapidly improving. I believe he's been playing that game for years, actually. But it's nice to see that he is still mixing in some StarCraft as well. Because at the beginning of 2025, when there weren't a whole lot of tournaments to be practicing for, it was pretty clear that some of the players, including Reynor, did get a little bit rusty. It took them some time to get back into the swing of things, but right now it's certainly true that Reynor is in very good shape. He obviously prepared very heavily, for example, for the EWC. Now, that's a couple months ago at this point in time. I don't think he had quite the showing that he was hoping for, but let's see if his crisis management is going to be on point. I love this. A third SCV. Creep. The creep. Hello, we need to restart those bunkers. The third SCV was sent across the map to complete the wall off. Now, this is still a full wall. It's a bit messy. You can't build on creep, obviously. I don't think you can. Can you break through this as the Zerg? No. The drones decide to go back to mining. This is weird. Now, this bunker, I believe it is going to be within a range of the hatchery. So as soon as it's done and the Marines pop in, it is going to be able to put pressure on the hatchery. But I really do like the two... Oh, maybe it's actually barely out of reach. No, it is within range. Okay. I do really like the double spine crawler right here for Reynor, though. He obviously needs to break through this. The hatchery has a lot of HP. With 3 SCVs repairing, though? This is honestly going to be painful. Do you pull the drones? Probably not. I guess you want to wait until the hatchery is as low as possible. But if you wait too long, then the other 2 bunkers are going to be fully occupied as well. Strange all-in to start things off. I called it an all-in. There is a command center in the meantime building inside of the main base of the Terran player, so he does have a backup plan. Yeah, I think you just buy time, and then at some point, I mean very soon, you need to commit as the Zerg. He has some transfuses available, so I guess that'll be his goal, but here we go. Is there enough? Queens, by the way, targeting down the SCVs. Hatchery is dangerously low, 121 HP only. The Queens decide to transfuse one another, although actually there's still 1 transfusion available. All right, it's a perfect hold. That got a little bit dicey, a little bit scary, but now with the two spines here a little bit closer to the edge of the creep, I don't believe that the Marines are going to be able to jump in and finish off the hatch. Obviously, that was costly for both players, really, but certainly more costly for Ryung here across the board. Not only did he lose more minerals, he also ended up obviously delaying himself quite a lot now. He decides to celebrate, though, with a 3rd command center. All things considered, a ridiculously fast one. I always wanted to find... I find it quite funny whenever we see a Terran player cheesing and then they take their 3rd base before the Zerg player in this instance. Reynor doesn't really know if the continued Marine production is indeed still there, but the Overlord at least sees that there's a bit of a retreat. I think the OV will end up falling here in the end. And we should see a 3rd hatchery coming up here in just a moment for Reynor, but he's a little hesitant because without Zergling speed, which is about halfway done at this point in time, those Marines can shut structures down very quickly. Okay. Now we have one little Ling being annoying. It's not going to be enough, though, to deny this command center for all too long. But the third command center here in the main base is already nearly done. So can we still call this a disadvantage for Ryung? Yeah, it's hard to say, really. I always feel like from this point of the game, right, it's a little bit more straightforward for the Terran than for the Zerg. Because most of the time, Zerg players will have to defend specific timing attacks. So, be it with Hellions roaming the map, be it with Hellion Banshee, be it with, for example, a Marine timing, right? There's a lot of different pushes that Terrans can go for. And from here, all of those timing attacks that Terran can, well, follow this up with, all of them are completely out of whack. There's really not a lot of, well, standardization anymore here for the Zerg. He can't really just blindly make a bunch of Zerglings. Okay, at say, for example, 36 drones. He does snatch, though, 2 of those Hellions here at this point in time, so at least there is some damage being done, but it's also been an awful lot of links. 33 of them, as a matter of fact, in total. Now, there's no bunker to defend at home. I wonder if indeed Reynor can go in for the counterattack. He did split the Zerglings up into 2 groups. I think this is smart here from Ryung. Yep, going into the main base. Ooh, backs up as well here to the safety of the Marines on the high ground. Those were not within the Zerg's vision. So good work here by Ryung, who is now actually going into the cloaking field upgrade. What I would really like to see is 2 Banshees going into the natural and just killing it. Normally, that's never the goal for 2 Banshees. But there's no Spore Crawlers or anything set up. I would not mind just a very long cloak straight through the middle of the map just to snipe the hatchery. Ryung, though, does not know that there is no Spore Crawler in that location. But that's, for example, one of those timings, right? Normal timing for a Spore in this matchup for Zerg is about 430 to 450 or so, depending on what they have scouted. If unsure, 430 is about right. Look, Reynor now starts up a Spore Crawler. 653? These are Spore Crawlers that are entirely based on fuel. Now, let's see if it is indeed correctly placed. Oh, Reynor sees it. Okay, I think that's enough. Yep, Queens have already gone back. He is anticipating this exact play. It's a little bit odd to be transfusing a hatchery at this point. Ryung is going to try and see if he can get the snipe down or maybe go after some of the drones. Yeah, he's been spotted, so he's giving his opponent the benefit of the doubt. Zergling run by yet again. Plenty of Marines, though, available. Oh, one of the Banshees mispositioned. It's because there is some aggression over here, too, so one of them ends up going down, and honestly, at this point, Reynor is looking very stable. The next scary thing here for the Zerg is a big Marine timing attack. He will not have Baneling speed done anytime soon. Yeah, he starts it up right now with the lair finishing, but the creep spread is looking really good. Hatchery timings here are looking pretty solid as well. I wouldn't even mind a 5th. Maybe that's a little bit greedy. Maybe that's because I can see the entire map, but I don't think it's all too bad of a situation here for Reynor, who is now preparing, it seems, just to play the macro game. Likewise here for Ryung. He's going into a whole load of additional barracks. Okay, so we're following up a Proxy 2Rex with triple command center really quickly, and then straight into an 8Rex. 8Rex on 3 bases is for all intents and purposes for Terran and all in. Now, obviously, you can always drop another command center and call it a day and maybe continue macroing from there, but you fall behind very quickly against the Zerg. This is a very skill-focused opener here by Ryung. It's certainly something that is very difficult to defend. I can almost hear the Zerg players watching this cringe just a little bit, because these are all the layers of aggression that most Zerg players around the world struggle against. Now, Reynor has been practicing over in Korea for a while now. And the Koreans in particular are very fond of these type of aggressive pushes. On the European server, maybe it's most likely to see Hero Marine going for that sort of style, but somebody like Klim rarely goes for an 8Rex. He rarely goes for a double barracks proxy. So there's a good chance that over the last few months, Reynor has been able to get some practice in, and maybe he is going to be at the very least anticipating it, because the Korean server is very cheesy. This, by the way, is a bug on the map. This is not your monitors dying. Whenever that happens, it's been a bug on the map for months, but I always see a couple of people freaking out. That was not your monitor crapping out on you, okay? Your monitor is probably fine. Maybe not. I don't know. All right. Now, I don't really like this line of attack here from Ryung. He decides to go through the bottom of the map, but it does mean that I guess he's sort of arriving mostly unnoticed. Those spine crawlers from the early game, by the way, still helping out too. Siege tanks do get into a nice spot. There's no hive or anything available just yet here for Reynor, so no Viper shenanigans, none of that. 4th command center starts up right now. So it's not a complete all-in. Look at Reynor, though, setting up little pockets of units all over. And I guess we're playing the same game again from the earlier stages of this match. I think we are basically waiting until the hatchery runs low. Ooh, and then we pull the trigger. Now, I do want to just have a quick little look. What's going on? Reynor says lag. My ping is normal. Ping check. 1 second, it's me. Nice. Wardy exploding. 3k ping for 2 seconds. It's all coming down. Go, 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 go. All right. Unfortunate timing right there for a lag spike, but at the very least they resolved it before what will likely be the most important engagement of this entire game. A lot of Terran reinforcements are showing up. One of the siege tanks misrallied. I don't know if I love this engagement, though, for Ryung here. Yeah, he's losing a lot of very important troops. And while this is sketchy for the Zerg as well, +2/+2 is still a little bit away from finishing up. If Ryung can buy time for that, that would be massive, but I don't think that's really going to be possible. Alternatively, Reynor gives up on his base. He does not, and sent the drones up north, but here we go. He decides to pull the trigger. Is there enough for the Italian Zerg player to overwhelm the Terran? It certainly looks like there is. Siege tanks go down, Hellbats go down, Marines, at least the few that were picked up in time, do get evacuated on out of air, and right at this point is when 2-2 finishes up. Nothing really going according to plan thus far for Ryung. Not quite fast enough with the pickup here either. 3-3 though starts up. And like I mentioned, the 4th command center was built. This is pretty late. I mean, we're now looking at like a 12-minute 4th command center when it finally gets up and running, which is several minutes later than you would normally expect it. So I guess that in general is suboptimal, but Reynor's economy also has not been that great. He's sitting at 74 drones right now, still making a ton of units. Hive is just about done. I don't know what he's going to be able to use those units for. He decides to go for some burrowed banelings. Pesky little Zorkling here as well, slightly misburrowed. But I guess that's the idea now. Yeah, we continue playing macro from here. I think Reynor did not realize that there was a 4th command center, so he assumed that this was going to be a continued 3-base all-in. Not the case. So now we're awkwardly trying to play catch-up a little bit again. Widowmine, Widowmine, Widowmine! Pretty good hit. Another one. Manual retargeting right there by Ryung. Making it all a little bit messy. All right. Pesky little Zorkling gets to reposition. SCVs run away. Ryung, though, hits maxed out right now. And, well, Reynor is sitting only at 175. Reynor's making some investments, though, into the future. He's got Adrenal Glands. He's built a Spire. Ultra Cavern here, although we don't yet have any of the upgrades. I love this little counterattack from Ryung. If he jumps in far enough, he might be able to kill the hatchery before the Zorklings come home. He decides to just go for the guaranteed damage. He didn't know exactly where that army was located. A couple of transfuses, though, as well. Here's the Banelings finally making their way back. Push over here as well, though, in the middle of the map, and Ryung suddenly is picking up the pace. I gotta say, I really do like the way that Ryung is playing this game. Ryung is not the best micro player in the world. I mean, I don't mean that with any disrespect, but if you look at his marine control here, it's just not quite as crisp as, say, for example, the likes of, well, Clem, I guess that would be the most obvious one, or Bjorn, or maybe even Maru. But strategically speaking, Ryung has always been an absolute monster. As a matter of fact, a lot of the strategies that Maru plays, and a lot of the strategies that Maru wins tournaments with, Maru, of course, the most successful tournament player from Korea, a lot of those are from Ryung. Ooh, is there enough for Reynor to break through this? Man, this is looking very oppressive. Drones are forced to evacuate to the far bottom right, and even though Reynor has been defending pretty much every single attack pretty darn well thus far, the Terran units are looking mighty oppressive. Ultras are spawning, but I mean, it's before before Chitinous is done, before +3 is done in the Evo chamber. Reynor did sneak out a hatchery that, yeah, Ryung does not know about. And that is problematic. Because in his mind, he now has the Terran, or he now has the Zerg player reduced to just 3 base economy. Oh. And he may actually have a gigantic misread on the amount of drones that there are available. Look, Ryung is pushing right now like he is ready to win the game. And this hidden hatchery over here in the far bottom right may just be his lifeline. We have some mass parasitic bombs going down as well. Parabomb deals 120 damage. Medevacs have 150 HP when they're fully healed up, so they're not quite going to fall all the way down to 0, but you do have to be cautious. Against 4 Vipers, this is still a situation that's playable, at least. Ryung, though, did go for a 5th command center, too. He's added on a few more into the mix as well, so he is making a proper transition towards a proper late game. I like basically everything Ryung has been doing so far this game. I think if you would have asked anybody to pick a favorite at the start of this series, 9 out of 10 players would have guessed Reynor. But Ryung seems to have his aggression lined up very well. And while it's been less of a focus on economy, which is what we see from the absolute top dogs with Terran most of the time, he is clearly very focused on aggression instead, and it's been very lovely. Honestly, I think this game would have been over if it wasn't for this base. I don't think Reynor can really push through. Now, what he does have is 1 Infestor. 1 Infestor with enough energy for 1 Fungal at this point in time. Sometimes that's all you need, though, and it is getting into position. Ryung has not seen a single Infestor yet. Oh? Oh, this could be big. This could be absolutely massive. Here it goes. Here it goes. Here it goes. Oh! Parasitic bombs, blinding clouds, everything goes down. Overseer is here. Suddenly, Ryung's supply takes a nosedive. That was about the best fight Reynor could have ever taken. He's slowly retaking all of the creep as well as the bases, by the way, so even though that expansion in the far bottom right was very disconnected, Ryung knows about the situation right now. He now realizes where all of this economy of the Zerg is coming from. But, I mean, if you look at the minimap right now, and you didn't know where the game was at a couple minutes ago, you would have assumed that none of those bases were ever cut off. Suddenly Reynor is fully back into this. That's a planetary down the drain. 22 SCVs as well. The one downside, I suppose, of doing this delayed eco strategy and this delayed tech strategy as well is that you're kind of stuck on Marine Marauder Medevac Mine for a really long time. And Marine Marauder Medevac Mine is good against basically everything except late game Zerg. Infestors are really powerful. Ultras are really powerful. Vipers, obviously, also really good. In order to combat that sort of army, you need a lot more Liberators and preferably a lot of Ghosts as well. But in order to pull that sort of, well, transition off, you usually need a good economy. So, yeah, it's difficult to really do everything. It's impossible, as a matter of fact, to do everything. And it means that those Ultras now are so much more dangerous. Now, the Ghost numbers are here. 6 of them at this point in time. Oh, Parasitic Bombs are so painful, though. Those Vipers have been the absolute MVPs. Yet again, here go the Ultras. I think the splits here are good, though. Yeah, the splits here have been good enough. Now they have to go through the liberation zones as well to safety. An expensive trade there for Reynor. Up until this point, he's lost about 6,000 gas, or 6,000 minerals rather, more than the opponent. A similar amount of gas. Orbital commands have kicked in. Here's that hero infestor from earlier. Sharking around the map. We do not have the mass orbital style, right? Which is usually what Terrans have at the 19-minute mark. He doesn't have scans for every single move that he makes. Maybe adding in a Raven. Ooh, lovely little move here too, though, by Ryung. Kills the hatchery, picks up at the absolute last possible second. There we go. Slow transition into the fusion core. That'll be for the Liberator ranged upgrade, as well as the Medevac energy regen. Corruptors are coming out now. Mostly to try and deal with Liberators, but they'll still be nice too. When it comes to sniping a few of those meta effects. Okay, so as the dust is now settled, who is in a better spot? It's been an absolute back and forth here for quite a while. I don't really love Reynor's creep spread, especially over here at the bottom of the map, but it's also not absolutely atrocious. Likewise, I don't really love his creep over here in the top section of the map, but it's doable, it's workable. The middle is still looking quite good. Ryung currently sitting at 5 orbital comments, 2 planetaries. Yeah. Likewise, not amazing, but serviceable for sure. After all the aggression is now settled and done, I would say the game is mostly even. Okay. Now what do you do as the Terran in the late game? Usually, if unsure, add on more command centers until you have about maybe 10, maybe 12 or so orbital commands. At that point, SCV count becomes negligible. You can really dedicate a ton of your supply to just army alone. Obviously, it is important to not give the Zerg, well, 80% of the map, right? You are aiming ultimately to get 50% of the map's total resources. So, yeah, this base needs to be the Terrans. This base over here needs to be the Terrans. Likewise for this as well. But since Reynor's economy has also not been that great throughout the game, even though we're 21 minutes in, a lot of the bases are still very, very fresh. We do need to get some of those upgrades going, though. Yeah, especially for the mechanical units. I wouldn't even mind seeing a second armory, but also certainly the fusion core upgrades. They're super critical. We've seen a bunch of games now where Terrans forget about them. Kind of like forgetting about combat shields was not uncommon in the early days of StarCraft 2. You really do need Liberator ranged. If you're gonna make this many libs, advanced ballistics is an absolute no-brainer. Because of the lack of creep though, here we go, little movement. And this is so fast to kill a base with. I mean, he wants to get the base and the drones, a little bit greedy, but you can see here, +3, pretty good. No armor upgrades for the Zerg structures. Slowly making his way towards one of those new mineral lines in the top left-hand corner. Static defense gets put down, okay. That'll be another planetary fortress ready to get into position. Now the Zerglings, of course, are powerful here. Likewise, I think it's absolutely critical for Reynor to get +3 melee. Obviously, this game has been extremely complex, but I think +3 melee is a bit of a no-brainer. Especially with Ultras, Lings, and Banes all benefiting from it. Zergling run by though goes into the natural expansion, up into the main base. Mostly just as a distraction. Okay, that push from earlier was good enough. You wanted to see if you could maybe get another one of those Zerg bases down the drain. Burrow is super annoying here. But you can tell here, right? Orbital commands are starting to accumulate plenty of energy. I think it's time to transfer some SCVs towards the top left-hand corner. Reynor, though, is just about ready to go for a big attack. This is do or die. He's got a lot of minerals, but not so much gas. Big fungal yet again. Ay, 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 ay. Man, those fungals have been so pivotal. Reynor has been in a tough spot multiple times over, but yet again, he solves the situation with some banger fungals. It's expensive for the Zerg, though. The 2 hero infestors have now died. And even though the Terran's army also disappeared, we have some mules to celebrate. Reynor instantly remaxes. Ryung is going to need a little bit more time. But honestly, with this many orbitals, you can remax very quickly too. It does mean, though, that that base in the top left-hand corner was critical, right? Because if that mineral line right now would be gone, I think it'd be difficult for the Terran player to ever remax. Reynor is probably thinking the same thing. He is actually already ready to go for wave number 2, spending all of his gas. He's got minerals for days, but you need gas at this stage in the game as well as minerals. These banelings are going to have to do a lot of work. All right, that's a planetary fortress gone. How many bases are there still available? There's another command center, actually, very nearby. I think you fly that one over immediately and turn that into a planetary as well. Yep. Pesky little Zerglings burrowed underneath yet again. Reynor has a couple of Vespian gas geysers that are currently unoccupied. He should certainly be thinking about taking them. This one is also unmined. Same for the one up here. But I think Reynor has been in a bit of a panicked state ever since the earlier... Ooh, those middle mines. Nice work. Ever since the double Rex, I think Reynor has been a little bit on edge. This is not quite the clean approach that we tend to see from him quite a lot. Okay. Ryung's supply count, though, is starting to look a bit problematic. He's not remaxing as quickly as I expected him to, and it's also, yet again, because of a Vespian gas geyser problem. Planetary starts up right now. He's trying to make a lot of Liberators. I wouldn't mind having more Marines in the mix here, but that's because he doesn't know that Zerg is gas-starved. Marines are actually a totally reasonable thing to do. Oh. The guy in the missile turret is saved. We have some big boy ultras, though. The ones that survived the fight previously, they've been transfused back up to full HP. Plenty of Terran units, though, nearby. Zergling run by into the main base to go after the Ghost Academy, of all things. Looks like it's not going to go down. And the lack of a +3 is becoming a pretty big oversight here for Reynor. Planetary, though, number 2 in this spot, is going to go down. Liberators out of position. They should have been sieged onto the planetary fortress, not right next to it. Still plenty of movement here for the Zerg to get in. Base in the far bottom right as well, though. Right now being taken. This one I find a little ambitious. Very easy for the Terran to harass. We've got a new orbital command. Moving on over towards the top left. And slowly but surely, even though Ryung has been playing a brilliant game of StarCraft, yeah, he's only just now getting those fusion core upgrades, which is all a little problematic, man. We had this fusion core for like 10 minutes. This is not a clean late game from either player, but I think slowly but surely, despite the fact that everything has gone, well, quite well, I think, for Ryung across the board, he is being choked out just by the sheer amount that the Zerg player is able to swarm the map with. We could easily go for Liberator harassment over here. We could easily be sending some more Medivacs around the map. But ever since Ryung decided to take the back seat in this game, it's been going worse and worse for him. He's been so busy just trying to secure this base in the top left that he's, well, just not had any APM, really any thoughts available to deny the Zerg's economy in the far bottom right. And maybe it's because he didn't have this base up, he couldn't afford advanced ballistics, he couldn't get the Liberator ranged upgrade going. I mean, he still doesn't have it. He decided to go for the Caduceus reactor, but we're still lacking the Liberator ranged research, which makes harassing those bases so easy. There's not even a Spore Crawler over here from Reynor, because he thinks that the Terran is never going to move out of this position ever again. Liberator's yet again in the wrong spot. It's a bit weird to be seeing the +3 flyer attacks, by the way, here, before +3 melee. What is up with that? Still, we have some lack of Vespian here for the Zerg. A lot of those bases just not utilized for gas mining whatsoever. I find it a little bit curious here. Reynor's been sitting on a bit of a disjointed economy for such a long time. He's gonna try his hand now at one of those other planetaries. One of the other mineral lines that the Terran is still mining from. That will be another planetary, though, to say goodbye to. The Vipers are no longer around, but at this point the Ultras are closing the distance themselves. Corruptors, I guess, have sort of taken over the duty here that those Vipers had earlier. Nice little counter-attack, though, by Ryung. But now he is completely broke. And he's stuck at 140-ish supply. Whereas Reynor, I mean, I wouldn't call him rich, but he's at the very least maxed out with a little bit of a bank, and now he realizes it. Now he finally realizes that he never fired up the +3 melee, probably recognizing that some of those fights have just not gone entirely according to plan. At some point, the pro gamers for certain, at some point you get a feel for how well armies should perform at this stage in the game. And I think Reynor right now had a few engagement where he's like, wait a second, I thought I would win that one, but I didn't quite, or maybe not as dominantly as I expected it to. Decided to check the Evo chambers and realized that indeed +3 melee was never researched. How many Liberators have we had this game? 22? 22 with 5 at this point available and 4 on the production tab. Not a single Liberator, though, with the ranged upgrade. I wonder what's more important in this game. +3 melee or Liberator ranged? Probably +3 melee. Makes me wonder as well, though, if Ryung would have gotten +3 melee at this stage, if he would have had it for as long as he could have had it, would this game be looking different? I think so. Because those Corruptors just have to overcommit way further. There's a good chance that those Liberators indeed would have been sieged up on those 2 planetaries twice already. Now he's being the aggressor. Fungal, yet again. Fungal, yet again. This time around, the Infestor gets to sit there and smile. Alright, before ultimately popping back underground. Not going to be able to sustain itself for very long. Reynor actually has run out of larva, which is a very problematic situation to be in. He finally has resources available for his army to be remaxed with, but now he doesn't have the larva. It's because of the lopsided amount of minerals and gas that he's had for such a long time now. Reynor actually not able to destroy this army, but I think now that new Zerg units are popping out of their cocoons, and this is really Ryung on his, well, last legs, I think we are going to see the conclusion of the match right about right now. What a brilliant game of StarCraft. GG. Next up, we find ourselves on the map 10,000 feet. I can't believe Reynor won that game. When the Adrax first went across the map, I thought it was game over. Likewise, I think Ryung probably assumed he would have had a gigantic advantage after the early game, even with the hatchery not dying to the double proxy. He was on triple command center there for several minutes before the Zerg ever started up a third. This is, by the way, one of the winners of the Team Liquid map contest. I believe it took second place across the board. Meaning that this will be guaranteed as a ladder map at some point in the future. I feel like the colors are slightly different. Am I losing my mind? I feel like the contrast on all of the red and all of the blue is very high. Maybe I'm hallucinating, but I feel like the colors are slightly changed. Now, usually when the map winners are announced, there will still be some sort of adjustments. So we may very well see some changes to some of these maps indeed. Maybe some decorations that can be improved on, or maybe little bits and pieces, like for example the colors that will be changed up. Yeah, I wonder if the contrast has been bumped up. For some reason it feels like it has been. Either that or I just never noticed it before. This time around though, no double proxy Rex on the other side of the map. What do you do now, right, as Ryung? Because that previous game really was within his grasp. Honestly, it kind of felt like he had a bunch of different tricks, right? So the double proxy Rex, the 8 Rex all in, the very quick follow-ups from there. And he somehow, some way compiled all the aggression perfectly into one match. And honestly, most of it went according to plan. But then he didn't win. So what do you do in game number 2? Well, we're starting off with a third base denial. That's why the little SCV popped in over here. The alternative third bases are over here or over there. And yeah, he now knows that Zerg is going to be stuck on 2 bases for at least a little bit. Reynor actually going for a bit of a different build here. So are we quickly rushing up to 4 queens? Is that the plan? Yeah. What is this build order here from Reynor? So this is a gasless 4 queen opener. He really wants to get a third hatchery going here. So far, though, the Reaper is doing a very good job denying it. He needs to do something here sooner rather than later. I think he now sees the SC. Yeah, he sees the drone over here too, so he knows, okay, that is indeed in the game plan of the Zerg right now. If he knew that this was a gasless opener, he gets a drone scout there, and he got a drone kill. Okay, not bad. If he knew that this is a completely gasless opener, I think he'd be fairly happy about the whole situation. Because yet again, we have the Terran going for a faster third base than the Zerg. Roach Warren coming up. Triple Command Center 111. Ryung, though, building it on location. And the fact that he's building it on location makes me think that he probably does know that indeed this is a gasless opener. Normally this would be very greedy. Only just now is when the first two Hellions pop out to be able to defend against the potential Zergling run by. So maybe he recognized it, or maybe he's just played against Reynor a bunch already. Reynor now also, though, because he's gasless, he's taking a trick out of the Protoss playbook, and he's keeping a drone on idle here just to complete the wall off. Kind of like you would with a probe in Protoss versus Protoss, for example, with a depth trying to shade by. Just so he can quickly build up an Evo chamber over here and prevent the Hellions from getting into the bases. Hyperflight Rotors is going to be the first thing here that Ryung is going for. Yeah, strategically speaking, Ryung has always been one of the very best Terrans from Korea. So it's well known, I mentioned it in a previous game, but it's well known that he and Maru get along very well. And even though Maru may have the better execution between the two, strategically speaking, it seems to be Ryung, who's the mastermind Terran in Korea. But still, though, he's been a formidable player himself for many, many years. Now, I'm actually curious, where is his current prize money at? Because he's been playing this game for a very long time. He's done fairly well as well, but he doesn't really play that many tournaments, right? So, you may have noticed in the weeklies, for example, Ryung pretty much never plays. Oh, look at that. That drone, its only job is finally done something. We have another Evo chamber block over here too. All right, fair enough. Oh, he's going to try and get back in. Yeah, so Ryung's total tournament earnings over the course of his career for, well, tournament prize money only, not including team salary or all the rest of it, is at $173,000. Not bad, but if you compare it to Maru, aka the man who took a lot of Ryung's strategies, Maru's sitting at 1.4 million. It's a little bit better. Reynor currently sitting at 859. I feel like one of the big differences is not really reflected right now so much in the APM count, I suppose, but one of the big differences, and this is again no disrespect to Ryung, it's just that the absolute top dogs in StarCraft 2 tend to be ridiculously fast. Here we go, though. Once more, out-strategizing his opponent quite nicely here. Even though the drone has been there to play defense the entire way through, the double-pronged aggression there with the speed Banshees, it's still allowed, apparently, these Hellions to drive in and host a little bit of a drone barbecue. That's 17 of those bad boys going down. Nice work here by Ryung, yet again. The problem is, though, right? This is not game-winning. Like, this is not a game-winning advantage. So you still have to continue playing the macro game against Reynor. And whereas, like, I feel like maybe Ryung is already kind of, like, at his peak as far as, like, average APM goes, Reynor is only gonna get quicker from here. And I'm not really entirely sure if you can really train that sort of thing. Like, yeah, just press the buttons faster. It's like, okay. Yeah. Just tell the marathon runners to run quicker. Are you stupid? Like, you're trying to break the world record for the marathon? Just run faster. It's a very similar thing at the absolute highest level, I'm sure, with anything. But you do run into some APM limitations at some point in time. So, yet again, we are watching the macro game between these two. Reynor also extremely good when it comes to playing scrappy games of StarCraft. Better in my mind than, for example, Serral. Serral is always all about clinical precision. I feel like maybe Serral, for example, could have lost that previous game. Because that's a situation you never really find yourself in. It's a weird one. You have to keep thinking. Reynor usually extremely good when it comes to thinking on the fly. And this is another one of those games. +1/+1 right here. Coming up for the Terran player. Reynor has already finished up the +1 carapace. Now opens up the backdoor entrance into the natural expansion. Since he knows that the Hellions are no longer really a problem, we may as well take this easy to acquire base here on the right. Speed Banshees going back in. Okay. Planetary Fortress in the meantime comes up over at the 4th base location. So we once more have 8 Rexes, but it's all been built in a bit of a different order. This time around we have a priority on command centers and a delay on regular unit production. So the Hellion Banshee style here is obviously very normal, but the way in which Ryung is playing it is a bit different. Most of the time we see the cloaking upgrade first on the Banshees. It seems like maybe the speed upgrade here has just thrown the Zerg player off a bit, but across the board, this is a much more standard game here from Ryung. So he's effectively saying, yo, I'm just going to play a relatively normal game against you, but with a little bit of a twist. It means, though, that we are going to indeed get those command centers going quicker, and it also means that the room for the Ghost Academy is here a little bit faster. Reynor again going for a very quick Spire. I find it quite interesting. We had that in the similar, or we had a similar timing, I believe, on it in the previous game too. But this is the type of stuff I'm talking about, right? Like we were just about, what is it? Like a 1/10 of a second late on switching over to that screen. And this is when there's relatively few things going on. You do end up losing a bunch of Marines there for practically free. And while in isolation, it doesn't really matter all too much. Over the course of the game, a lot of those little moves added up together that tend to make all the difference. Got a few creep tumors going. That's the strength of rapid fire right there. The queens are trying to stumble over one another just to poop on the creep. Get out of my way, Susan! This was my spot to prove. It's okay. It's okay, man. We'll make some room. Ooh, greater spire. We're going double spire here. Curious. We haven't seen a whole lot of that in general. I guess that's one way to try and get rid of those Banshees. Parasitic Bomb is pretty darn good. Usually, though, Brood Lords are not quite the unit that you go for as Zerg in general. At least, most of the time, Ghosts counter them very nicely. Now, I will say, of course, that the Brood Lord has been changed with the latest balance update. So they are much more reliable now, and they're also a little bit slower. Because across the board, since they are more reliable now, their damage has gone through the roof. And to compensate, they're back to their original movement speed that they had for years. Basically, a few years ago, they got a movement speed buff, and that now has been reverted. 5 command centers on the production tab. Okay, we're playing proper turtle styles now. Fair enough. He's going double upgrades for the flying Zergs. Tactical nuke coming up here for Ryung. Brood Lords against nukes. I immediately get flashbacks to those Solar games. Am I the only one? Solar infamously played against nukes a few times with Brood Lords. It did not go well. It turns out it's very bad for your Brood Lord's health to get nuked. Yeah. I feel like that's the case for most everyone out there. You don't want to get nuked. Very bad for your health. We're going Ghost Mech. Really? Yo, Ryung is playing the biggest macro game you can play. Mass expand, mass command center, opens up with bio, transitions into ghosts, then into siege tanks together with ghosts. Blue Flame Hellbats are going to be here. We'll probably get a second armory for double upgrades. Oh, we already do, actually. Double upgrades for armory already coming up. Yep. Are we going Brood Lord Infestor Reynor? Reynor is currently still maxed out on this unit composition, so he can't really make a whole lot of broods, but I guess that's the plan. Brood Lord Infestor with some other units for support. Maybe some supply dedicated to Zerglings and Banelings. Oh, maybe don't attack your own command center again. Alright. Retargets right over there. I would really like to see some Brood Lords now, though. Because sometimes we see Zergs going double upgrades like this, and then double Spire as well, and then they sort of get stuck with this unit composition instead. Because you do need some time, right? To make the Corruptors and to actually morph into Broods. And this is not a bad unit composition that he's got right now. Maybe it's even better. Ryung slowly pushing his way to a new base, though. Yep. Following it up as well with a line of static defense, getting the Liberators into position. Here's the 9 Corruptors. Usually when you go Broods, you make about, I want to say 8 to 12 Brood Lords or so. I think that's a good number. Going over that is rarely the right play. Ryung, though, really showing to us that he's perfectly capable of playing the big macro game. May I just point out, though, that I am missing the Fusion Core and the Liberator Ranged, and therefore also the Medevac upgrade. When you have this much money, in my mind, it's an absolute no-brainer, because it makes both units so much better. When we're spending money on, well, building armor, high-sec auto-tracking, which is planetary fortress ranged. Yeah, maybe, and also missile turret range for what it's worth. And bunker additional space. But anyways, when we're getting these 2 upgrades going, right, we should definitely always be thinking about a Fusion Core as well. Neuroparasite coming up for Reynor in the meantime. There's always a chance, right, if you do go Brutes, that the opponent is immediately going to make the transition towards Thors. Oh, well, that's the easiest, the easiest kill of his life. Nice bit of aggression, though, here by Ryung. Really tightening the noose. Base in the bottom left, also in a world of trouble. It's a lot of Banelings. Yeah, Banelings against Marauders and Ghosts? I don't know, man. It's costly. Anyway, Zerglings are still going to go in. And these Ling Run Bys are so dangerous. We got some parasitic bombs yet again on the Medevacs. No unloading, so that's 2 of them full of units going down the drain. And now the Brood Lords are coming. Now that the supply count has indeed been thinned out. Supply has become available, and we will add on the Broods. Man, these Zerg Run Bys are so effective. Makes you wonder if you ever should go for Brood Lords. Wow. This little Ling Run By just now has been ridiculously effective. Little pockets of units everywhere. One pesky little roach trying to save the world with its acid saliva over here. That's the sound I picture they make. In the meantime, little Zergling Run By at the front as well. Maybe this base is still being denied, but at least no longer by those 2 tanks. Burrowedlings also decide to uproot yet again. And suddenly everything's starting to fall apart here for Ryung. Notice the APM, right? So the APM is indeed not quite as high as you would like it to be here. Now, you must have seen the Brood Lords, because Big Daddy Thor is coming out. So Thor's outranged Brood Lords, and in the past, they absolutely destroyed them. These days, though, I'm not entirely sure if that is actually the case. Brood Lords just seem to be so much more reliable. Ghost Snipes, by the way, get interrupted if they take any form of damage at all. Yep. Fungal Growth does deal a little bit of damage, specifically for that. Yeah, and normally Ghosts would be really strong against this sort of thing, but the Ghosts just don't really seem to work. Notice how this entire Terran army is getting pinned back. Normally Ghosts would have just sniped once and then everything would have died. Now, I do like this little hit squad over here on the right side of the map, though. Ryung does snipe another base. This is my impression of this, okay? It's even more excessive than the Roach Supervisor from up north. At least the planetary stays alive for now. The Thors are coming out, though. Yeah, There they are. Very rare unit to go for. We rarely see them, but I like it. It's cool to see. It's nice to have. The weird dynamic, right, is that in like a straight-up engagement, Thors aren't that bad. It's just that they get stuck. They get stuck on everything, man. Stuck on ghosts, stuck on the broodlings, stuck on the terrain. And usually for Zerg, when you don't have enough Brood Lords to win against Thors, usually the solution is to add more Brood Lords. Because at some point, the terrain will just favor the Broods since they're flying units. A couple of the ghosts, though, trying their best. Siege Tank actually denying some of the snipes there because they dealt damage with the friendly fire. Ooh. Finally, we're going into the Fusion Core. Man, Ryung very allergic to Fusion Core upgrades for some reason. Zergling run by yet again up north, by the way. Parasitic bombs. Killing whatever they can. Look at the bank. Ooh, I hadn't looked at the bottom of the screen for a while. Reynor is sitting at a casual 20k. He's got money here to send his drones to college. Isn't that beautiful? Not that Ryung is broke. Because of the Mass Command Center style, he's had a lot of opportunities here to mine resources, but I guess that's the problem with getting rich, man. There's always a richer player out there. Ryung probably thinks he can never be beat here. Well, his army is good, though. Yeah, and because of the Brood Lord movement speed reduction, he does need to be careful. Now, because the Thor numbers are quite big, maybe you just stop making Broods? Or do you keep... I don't know. Do you stop making Brood Lords altogether, or do you make more? I feel like those are the two options. I don't know if we can really sit on 5 Broods. I mean, 5 Broods is basically saying, okay, we're done with Brood Lords. Tactical nuke goes across the map. We're aiming at the Brood Lords. This is a ghost that's like crossing its fingers, crossing its toes, hoping that it can hit the jackpot. Okay. Dude, the saturation levels, the contrast on this map, it's been pumped up somehow. Ooh, Corruptor. This time around, I do indeed get the job done. New tactical nuke immediately gets queued up here, but I think this is, by the way, why we're going Hydras. It's a bit of a weird transition to be making right now, but when you have this much money, you may as well. High-rolling Bane makes a lot of sense against this type of army composition. This is a weird composition, right? Like this makes sense against Brood Lords, but this is good against much more standard unit styles from the Zerg. I'm not so sure. Okay. Hey, by the way, if you've made it all the way until this point in the video, if you could do me a favor and hit the like button down below. I pretty much always forget to ask. But if we get like 2,000 likes on this video, I will upload another one. And if we don't, I will be doing this all day in my next cast. Okay, it's another base gone. Those Corruptors have been awfully effective. There's the Caduceus reactor. Actually, then maybe that's going to make people not hit the like button because they want me to do all day. I'm not very good at threatening. my fear-mongering did not work. It was a bad idea. All right, now Ryung has finally finished up his late-game upgrades. It's taken a while. 22 minutes. He still has a good eco, but here comes the Zerg. There's like no siege tanks here, and the ones that are there get blinding clouded to death. The Banelings just roll through and go after the ghosts, after the Marines, and in the meantime, the Hydras are doing a pretty good job. Reynor again with a larva problem. It's a little bit embarrassing. Oh, a little Brood Lord hit squad on the left side. Grand Theft Brood Lord over here. I heard Grand Theft Brood Lord got delayed to like November of next year. Looks like Reynor is playing the beta. Ooh. Yeah, Brood Lords by themselves are interesting. Ooh, now this is problematic for the SCVs. They're gonna get eaten up. Corruptors going in around the site yet again. Yeah, now Reynor is just unstoppable. Reynor is just so freaking good in these type of weird, unexplored territories of StarCraft. I honestly think he's playing this masterfully. Look at this. There's Grand Theft Brood Lord is still ongoing. The Brood Lord hit squad had made its way all the way to the other side of the map. Honestly, brilliant series of StarCraft 2. It is indeed Reynor who ends up winning 2-0. Maybe not a surprise there in the end, right? Like, maybe that's what you expected going into this series if you just would have looked at the two names and the fact that it's a best of 3 series. But I gotta say, especially game number 1, strategically from Ryung was absolutely brilliant. He could just barely not string it all together.